Hey, what's up guys? I am Tridanium, and today I want to show you this last Epoch build that I've been playing. I've been running with the Druid since release, and I've tried nearly every build out there for the class, but never found anything that really stuck. And I really wanted to feature that white fur you get in your Werebear form when you put on Kermod's cage, but I couldn't really find a guide that showcases that body armor. After countless hours of research and days of trial and error, I got to what you're looking at today. We clear waves pretty quickly, while being extremely tanky, allowing us to clear most endgame content and push corruption. I've taken this build past wave 200 in the arena, and I'm currently working on pushing past 450 corruption in the monoliths, but I've taken a break on pushing corruption to put together this guide for you all, in hopes that you'll enjoy it as much as I do. This build is very easy to play and doesn't require much to start, but it does require specific gear to really excel into the late game, but that's for future you to worry about. I'm just kidding, it's pretty easy to farm. So let's take a look at our gear. Uniques are not needed for this build to function, but they are highly recommended if you want to push this build far. The first unique or set items we're going to be taking a look at is the Shard of Shattered Lance and the Fragments of Shattered Lance, which will allow us to scale our cold damage when we stack health regen. This set bonus gives us 15% increased melee cold damage per 10 health regen, and so with upwards of 1,600 health regen, we're looking at somewhere above 2,000% increased cold damage from this set, while keeping our HP topped off at all times. You can target farm these by killing God Hunter Argentis, which is the boss of the Stolen Lance monolith. The next item we'll be going over is Kermod's Cage, the body armor. This gives us all the stats we want, like elemental resistance, strength, damage, and white fur in our Werebear form. I used this armor without LP for the majority of my first playthrough, starting at level 60, and recently got a LP3 to add 4 levels of upheaval, strength, and health regen. Next, we have our helmet, the Call of the Tundra, which much like Kermod's Cage gives us everything we want in an item: health regen, damage, as well as the added levels into Warcry. On top of that, I added the 4 levels into Werebear form, and if you don't have this, I'd recommend an Exalt with similar stats. You could target farm this item from defeating the Frost Deer boss at the Age of Winter. For our amulet, we are running Aurora's Time Glass, which will help protect us from being bursted down too fast. Before this, I was running a LP3 Tears of the Forest for the 20% increase in armor, since it's fairly cheap in the Merchant's Guild. But if you don't have any of these uniques, running an Exalt amulet with crit strike multiplier, health, res, or regen will do just fine. In our main hand, we're using a dagger with melee critical strike chance and melee attack speed, along with a chance to apply frailty and chance to shred armor so that we take less damage while our enemies take more. Our rings fill our resistance gaps while providing strength, crit chance, health, and health regen. I also stack these onto Quicksilver coil rings because they also give a little bit more attack speed and a little bit more health regeneration as well. We use Stormhide Paws for our gloves, which gives us +1 level to swipe and increased cold damage, while the rest of the stats are also very nice. If you don't have Stormhide Paws, you can use any gloves with similar stats. Our belt is Legacy of the Quiet Forest, which helps us cap our res and provides us with a lot of armor. I stacked health on top with some LP, but you can use any defensive belt. And for our boots, we are using Citadel boots, which provide tons of armor and crit protection for the implicits, and we have strength, movement speed, health regeneration, health, and the experimental affix for frenzy on there. If you do not have the Shattered Lance set or any of the other uniques, you can just stack melee physical damage as well as the other defensive layers like health, endurance, and armor, since we'll be trying to max those out anyways. I'll be including a stats and affix priority list in this video, as well as in the written guide, so you have something to refer back to. For our idols, we're trying to cap out our elemental resistance, as well as put in health regeneration wherever we can. These first 2 idols we have on top is melee critical strike multiplier while transformed, and increased health regen while transformed. We have 2 of those, and then at the bottom we have increased health regeneration while transformed, and we also have 2 of those as well. On the left hand side we have 2 large idols, which give us increased aspect of the board duration and elemental resistance while transformed. 2 of those. And over here we have our health regeneration and necrotic resistance. And we have 2 of those as well. And these are going to help us cap out our resistances and help us raise our health regeneration and give us a little bit more melee critical strike multiplier. And here we have our blessings, which we're using to fill in the gaps of what we need. At the top, we have critical strike multiplier, which is giving us a much needed crit strike multiplier increase. And then we have plus 18% to all resistances to help cap our res. We have armor for much needed armor. Armor is always welcome in our build. And since we have a maximum threshold of 60%, which we already hit with passives and skills, we are trying to find wherever we can to sneak in endurance threshold. It's going to make us a lot tankier, and we don't need to add it into our gear, which we want to focus on for damage and health regen. And then we also have the important increased health regeneration blessing from ending the storm. And we are taking this for obvious reasons. We are focusing on health regeneration. Also at the top here, I have an increase in experience. I am level 100, but I am constantly selling and buying in the merchant guild. So I need a lot of favor to keep upgrading my gear, to keep pushing corruption, and then to keep getting stronger for all of us. So I got that. And if you didn't know, increases to experience gain is increases to favor gain. As for the others, you take whatever you need, take whatever you are lacking. I just have shards and then maybe scepter because I am looking for frozen ire, LP4 preferably, but you know, a frozen ire in your main hand would definitely be a big boost in damage. So that's what I'm looking for. Next, we have our passive skill trees. And here's a snapshot of the primalist tree. We just take the bare minimum here, but we want to be focusing on primal strength. It's plus 8 strength and 32% increased health regeneration, which we are stacking. Following up with Hunter's Restoration for a little HP, and then Harmony of Blades for the ability to dual wield. We then want to top it off with Survival of the Pack for a bit more melee damage increase. Moving on to our Druid passive tree. We take 5 points into Chitinous Plating to help cap our endurance, and 5 points into Primordial Resonance for added damage. We then grab Thicket of Thorns for the 20% armor increase. And this is a permanent Werebear form build, so we will be taking Focused Wrath and Rancor to keep our rage up. And then maxing out Focused Wrath for another added damage bonus. This build relies on attack speed to sustain stacks, so we will take Wind in the Leaves for the attack speed bonus. Then we're taking at least 8 points into Aspect of the Might, because it gives us 1% increased melee damage per strength while we're in Werebear form, going all the way up to 10 for a little bit more strength. Then 8 points into Overgrowth for that juicy plus 10 health regeneration and the 64% increased health regen. 8 into Rageborn to increase our critical strike chance and give us Rage on crit to help sustain our resources. Then finally, we will be taking Hideskin and Impervious. Hideskin gives us 150 HP, while also giving us 10% of our health as endurance, and Impervious is just another strong defensive layer. And then we have the Beastmaster passive tree, where we get a lot of our defense passives, since there's a lot of damage reduction to be found here. We're going to be taking Ursine Strength, which reduces damage taken from nearby enemies by 16%. Then we're taking 4 points into Boar Heart to enable Aspect of the Boar, which gives us another 15% damage reduction when Aspect of the Boar is active. 5 points into Porcine Constitution for yet another 15% increase in damage reduction, as well as 75% increase in health regeneration. Then we take 1 point into Boar Heart to allow us to proc Aspect of the Boar on melee attacks. We're getting Savagery and Ambush to help us proc Aspect of the Shark, which gives us a little more damage and attack speed, and then Call of the Pack for a little bit of HP and build up towards Porcine Constitution. And finally, we have the Shaman passive tree, where we only have 5 points in Sky Warrior, which will reduce the cooldown of our main damage skill Maul by 10%. Maul takes on all the modifiers of Fairy Leap because we took the Skull Crusher node in the Werebear skill tree. Okay, let's take a look at our skills. We're running Werebear form, Upheaval, Fairy Leap, Swipe, and War Cry. First, we have our Werebear form skill tree. To start off this build, we want to make our way towards Tremor Slam, and then Skull Crusher. This will improve our damage considerably and allow us to utilize the Upheaval and Fairy Leap skill trees while in our Werebear form, scaling up our Maul. Next, we want to make sure we don't fall out of transformation, so we are focusing on Rage Upkeep. For that, we'll be taking 4 points into Invigoration and 2 points into Frenzied Strikes. Then we want to make sure that our crit chance is high, so we'll be making our way towards Insatiable. Finally, we want to make sure we're maxing out Ursine Heart and Insatiable, but if you do not have the extra 4 points into Werebear form, you can just focus on Insatiable first, unless you don't have Aurora's Time Glass and need to be a little bit more tanky, then I'd recommend maxing out Ursine Heart first. Next, we're going to be taking a look at Upheaval, and this is where we're going to be converting our physical damage into cold damage to synergize with our Shadowlands set. So we are going straight over to Glacial Cascade to turn Upheaval's base damage into cold. Then moving over to Quarry Maker, which allows us to clear large waves and packs, and then making sure we get Crust Rupture for that added critical strike multiplier. We're topping this skill tree off with putting the rest of our points into Unstoppable Strength and Frozen Collision, and if you don't have that extra 4 points, then you can hold off on maxing out Frozen Collision and putting the rest into Unstoppable Strength. Moving on, we have Fairy Leap. First, we head straight to Violent Upheaval, and this will be the second time we cast Upheaval. And if we go back over here to Tremor Slam and read both skills' interaction with each other, we see that instead of casting twice, this will increase our Maul damage by 30%. Next, we want to be able to spam Maul as much as possible since it is our primary DPS ability, so we take Aspect of the Mantis to reset our cooldown on kill and max points into Panther Strike to increase cooldown recovery. Then we'll be capping out this tree by putting max points into Brutal Impact for critical strike multiplier and the rest into Ambush Predator to instantly delete mobs on impact. Here we have Swipe, which will be our main spam ability. Swipe will help us generate and sustain our stacks while applying constant single target damage. So our first focus will be taking all of the Aspect of the Panther nodes and maxing those out like Feline Hunter, Lion Strength, Sabertooth's Endurance, and Twin Fangs, which all will give us a ton of buffs on max stacks. Then we can go straight over to the Culling node on the other side, and since this build does lack a little bit of single target damage, having the 14% kill threshold definitely makes killing bosses easier. And last but not least, we are using Warcry to buff us up even further. We're taking Shallow Breath first to make sure we can spam Warcry, then making sure we take all the Berserker nodes to increase our damage output even further by increasing our attack speed and melee damage. Since we are not running a companion, we do not want to take Bloodthirst. Then finally taking the cold damage nodes up here along with Bringer of Winter to help us cap our crit. So what affixes should we focus on? Since we're scaling our damage and defense with both strength and health regeneration, we want to make sure each piece of our gear has at least one of those. Armor and health regen alone won't protect us from massive one-shots, so we will also need to stack HP where we can. When we're able to, we will want to find pieces of gear that give plus levels to Werebear form and Upheaval, since those skills are the primary focus of this build. And of course, we want to cap out our resistances, so add those wherever you see fit. So our armor affix priority list is as follows: strength, health regeneration, health, armor, resistance, levels to Werebear form and Upheaval. Now, this can vary between builds and what you currently have too much of, but this is what I prioritize when I am looking for my gear. Typically, strength and health regeneration are at the top because they give me both defense and offense. For our offensive affixes, we want to stack crit and melee attack speed wherever we can. So we make sure we have melee attack speed on our gloves and weapon, and then crit on gloves, weapons, amulets, and rings. Our damage rotation for large waves and mobs is simply just running and jumping on them with Maul, and upheaval should destroy whatever is underneath your feet, and with aspect of the mantis, you can cast it again if you kill an enemy, allowing you to just jump around and smash the whole map. For our bosses, we want to build up and sustain max stacks with swipe and use Maul whenever it is off cooldown. You can face tank a lot of bosses in this game with this build, so just stay there and keep swinging and smashing, but be careful of the Shade of Orbis, since they do have a lot of one-shot abilities, so I'd recommend just dodging the big attacks from them. If you feel like you're still lacking in boss damage, I recommend using the Throne of Ambition Unique Endurance Idol. I was using this idol for most of my progression, but it's been quite hard fitting a 2x2 idol into my setup currently. Let's go over all of our defensive layers. I like to use this tool here to calculate my EHP, effective HP pool, and see how much defense I actually have. Another useful piece of information we get here is the EHP versus one-shots. Since we are stacking so much health regeneration, we shrug off a lot of abuse, but we can definitely get one shot by big bosses. So by checking our EHP versus one shots, we can see how well we'll fare against most of those enemies. Our endurance caps out naturally at 58% from all of our passives and skills alone, and our amulet tops it off at 60%. But if you do not have Aurora's Time Glass, max out chitinous plating to get that 58% endurance. Endurance is one of the best one-shot protection mechanics in the game, so we want to make sure we get as much of that as we can without sacrificing too much damage, and thankfully we get a good amount passively. We also get a lot of armor since we stack strength for damage. Our HP is lower than I would like, but that's due to my LP gear not taking the HP affix that I want. So if I had to choose, I would stack as much HP as I can on my body armor, helmet, then hybrid health on gloves, boots, and belt, as well as our idols. But health idols are also very expensive. Also, we have 75% to all our resistances, which may seem like the cap, but we would prefer to be at 100% since there are enemies that shred resistance by 25 in the game. So in total, we have 2,347 HP, 4,791 armor, 1,012 endurance threshold, 75% to all resistance, and 60% endurance, which gives us an EHP of 10,317 against physical damage and 6,774 against non-physical. And with 1,636 health regeneration, we don't need any health potions, so overall, we tank pretty well. Well, that covers just about everything I could think of about this build. So I've also included a written guide in the description below. So if you wanted to take a deeper dive into the build or just need a reference, you can take a look at that. There's also a loot filter, build planner, and whatever else I could think of down there. So go ahead and take a look. Anyways, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I would love to hear what you think about it. So please comment down below. It's also the first YouTube video I ever made, and I had such a blast making it. I think I'll be making more. Anyways, thanks for watching. Thank you for being you. I'm off, and hopefully see you back soon. Bye.